welcome to the Guitar Department. On this episode, we're going to be talking about classical guitar with classical guitarist Stephen Kennedy. He has got a lot going on, the Heart of Iowa Classical Guitar Society. He's got a duo with Dave Reynolds. He's also got the Iowa Guitar Quartet. We've got a lot to talk about. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Guitar Department. And we are back, and I'm sitting here with Stephen Kennedy. Stephen, thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
You have got a ton of stuff going on. We're going to cover all sorts of things: Heart of Iowa Classical Guitar Society, Iowa Guitar Quartet. You have a Kennedy Reynolds duo that we're going to dive into, and you do solo performance, and you're teaching now at 3 colleges.
Yes.
And Riemann Music, by the way. Mm-hmm. I want to start with that guitar.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about it?
Sure. So this is a guitar made by the maker Michael Timms, who's from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm very fortunate to own, I think, 5 guitars by him. Wow. And he is a phenomenal builder. I got my first guitar by him, I think, in 2017, and then this one I picked up in 2022. And so, for me personally, I'm more of a spruce guitar fan, and this guitar is a cedar top. Spruce guitars have, they're usually a little brighter, but there's also a wider tonal palette, so I kind of like it. To me, it's more of a mature kind of, you kind of have to pull the sound out a little bit more, whereas cedar tops tend to be just, it's very easy to play. But I didn't have a really good cedar top, so I wanted one. Sure. And so I wanted it to be a double top, and so what that means is that there's literally 2 tops that are basically sandwiched together with, so there's cedar, and then in between there's a layer of balsa wood. Ah. And so double tops make the guitar a little louder, but it also just gives it a really unique sound. And so I really like those. I have another double top at home. And the guitar itself, the body is based on an 1888 Torres guitar. So Antonio Torres is considered the kind of the father of the modern classical guitar.
I'm going to say it looks like it has almost like what we would call a parlor guitar shape.
Yes, yeah.
In the sort of...
Yeah, and I'd say it's probably just slightly smaller than than what we might think of as a standard modern classical guitar today, right. But for the most part, pretty standard shape. The bracing, that's kind of the thing that Torres really developed. It has a 7-fan brace system, so inside the top there are literally 7 strips of wood. And
so you can sort of picture them like a hand coming out
right.
of 7 fingers.
Yeah, and that's still kind of the standard today that most builders use. So that's what the body is based on, but it's very much a modernized guitar. It has it's called an elevated fretboard.
Oh, look at
so
this
that means
too.
that the top or the fretboard actually comes up a little higher than a standard fretboard. And then the wood combination, so of course the cedar top and then the back and sides are made out of cocobolo. And Michael had sent me a couple options, some pictures of wood he found, and this one just had some characteristics I really loved, and once he stained it, it was just an absolutely gorgeous instrument, so really happy about that. And then the headstock has a layer of cocobolo on top with some ebony strips that he put in there, and then the tuners are made by the German company Scheller, which are really precision-oriented tuners, and of course they look really gorgeous too. So
yeah, it is just a beautiful guitar.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's really unique. You don't see that sort of classic style. I mean, it's a classic old guitar, but there's a modern version of the classic old guitar, and that looks like something you'd see in a museum.
Yeah.
What is it you have attached to it there?
Yeah, so this is a unit that's in place of what we call a footstool, and so you got a footstool there. So normally or historically with classical guitar, we put our left leg up on a metal footstool, and then the guitar will set on our leg, and that's what we use to prop the guitar up. Well, over time, if you do that enough, you can get your back can kind of just start to hurt a little bit. My problem is actually my butt starts to hurt after practicing for maybe an hour, and so I have a hard time dealing with that. And so this is a thigh support or a leg support, and there's all sorts of different types out there, and I have a couple others at home. But this one, what's cool about it is that it uses magnets, and so on the inside of the guitar I had to install 2 magnets, and then on the tops of this here, this is just a simple piece of cork to kind of protect the finish, but there's magnets underneath that, and then once you bring it to the guitar, which I usually do this with my right hand, let's see if I can control it, it wants to pull on, and then it sticks, and so it's very secure, and then you can adjust this to whatever angle you want, so when it sits against your guitar. So so not only is it more comfortable, I think, to sit with, but I find that I can get the guitar a little higher than what I might normally do with a footstool. And then the other advantage, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but I think it is true, less of the guitar is touching my body now, and so that I think maximizes how much it can sustain and resonate.
Tone production, yeah.
You know, if I've got my whole body kind of, you know, if this is on my leg and more of the back would be against my chest, it's going to muffle it just a little bit. I mean, it's probably a subtle amount, but I do think that does help. So that's another advantage.
Do you think the magnets on the inside affect the tone?
I wondered
sort of
that.
a counteractive way?
I don't think so. You know, that's a big thing. A lot of people have said that. I mean, if it does, it's not really perceivable maybe to our ears. But
Sure.
of course, the top is the primary driver of the sound
Right.
of the guitar. But so far, yeah, I think it's been about the same.
All right. Well, like I said a second ago, you have a ton of stuff going
Yeah.
on. Let's start. You've got a performance coming up.
Yeah.
February 17th, 7:30. Where's it at?
Yeah, it's going to be at Grandview University at the Speed Lyceum, which is located in the Student Center. So if you're familiar with East 14th Street in Des Moines, it's right on the east side of East 14th Street. And if you go to our website, heartofiowaguitar.com, you can find some info about that. And so this concert, it's me playing, but I'm sort of playing on behalf of the Heart of Iowa Classical Guitar Society. I'm the president of the organization.
Right.
And then every year we try to have 1 to 2 local artist concerts where we use it as a benefit concert. So all the funds for this concert will go back directly to the Guitar Society. And it's been a while since I played a true solo concert, kind of a public solo concert, and so I've kind of been itching to do that. And so I have a good program of music together and decided to go for it. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
So tell me about the Heart of Iowa Classical Guitar Society. That's
Yeah.
something you started. You started it, correct?
I did not. No,
Oh, okay.
Actually, there were a number of other individuals that started. I was living in Nashville actually at the time in graduate school, and this was 2011, I believe, when it was started.
wow.
And so then I joined when I moved back to Des Moines in 2012, and then I think a year or two later, I became the president, and then I've been the president ever since. And so, yeah, our mission is to basically promote classical guitar in central Iowa and Iowa more broadly across the entire state. We sponsor concerts. We bring a lot of guest artists in from around the world. And of course, we have some local artist concerts as well, and then master classes, and then all sorts of basically anything that we can be a part of that's related to classical guitar. We try to do it.
Excellent. And how would people find out about that? How would people,
Yeah.
if they want to find out more, where
Sure,
should they
yeah.
go?
heartofiowaguitar.com is our website, and yeah, you just go there. You can find all the links, and if you want to become a member, that's another thing. If you want to partner with us and help promote classical guitar, you can do that. $25 for a year for an individual. That's the membership, and that'll give you some discounts on tickets to events, and hopefully more than anything, you'll have that satisfaction of helping promote classical guitar in Central Iowa.
Now, I've been a classical guitar fan for a very long time. My exposure to it actually started with the band The Doors.
Okay.
Their guitar player was an aspiring flamenco player, and he sort of drew that style in. He played mostly blues and stuff, but he has a couple songs where he really dives in. He finger-picked everything,
Yeah.
but he really sort of dives in with the nylon string on a couple songs.
Yeah.
And that eventually led me. There's a song called Spanish Caravan
Yeah,
where
based
they
on Asturias, right?
yeah. And so I took that to my teacher, and he was like, "Oh, you're playing Leyenda." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm not though." And he goes, "Well, yeah, you are." And so I ended up learning about Leyenda, and then that took me through the whole pantheon through Soar and Torrega and Segovia and up through the sort of hierarchy of classical guitar players.
Yeah.
How did the journey start for you?
Well, I started playing guitar. I was in 9th grade, and it was like the first week or so of September 2001. So that's partly why it's kind of embedded in my mind. And my dad, I'd wanted to play for maybe about a year, and my dad went to a pawn shop and bought, an acoustic guitar, a steel string acoustic guitar, and so many stories, just getting a cheap guitar. And I taught myself for 5 years, mostly kind of learning songs for bands that I really liked. And then, it was probably in my junior year in high school, I joined jazz band and started to get maybe a little more serious with things. I couldn't read music yet.
I was going to say, did you play another instrument?
No, I had messed around with keyboard, but no, I'd never played anything else before. But yeah, it was just, I think it was maybe 7th or 8th grade, I kind of got exposed to kind of modern music. So my dad was a big fan of like oldies and classic rock music, so I'd listen to a lot of that. And then my mom was maybe a little more country music, I think, which I hate country now. But so that was so I had a good sense of music in my past, but then somehow I got, I guess, through being in school, it seemed like I was kind of the loser for not liking more modern bands, and so, I started picking up and getting into like the late 90s kind of rock and alternative rock bands. Two of my favorites, Matchbox 20 and Creed, which I know Creed certainly gets their share of they're kind of the new Nickelback, I think. In a sense
I think they're the original Nickelback.
That might be, yeah. And so Mark Tremonti, I was a huge fan of his, and then Matchbox 20, which they're, just a pop band, but they actually do write good music. So that was kind of what influenced me to want to become a musician or a guitarist at first. And then I think, my senior year in high school, I started having to read music. I had to actually transpose a flugelhorn solo piece for a piece in the jazz band. So I had to not only had to read music, but I had to learn, okay, how do I transpose this into C clef? And so that's what I did. And then maybe over the course of the next year, I decided, okay, now if I'm going to do music, if I'm going to go to college, I want to major in music and actually learn about this. And so, kind of set about doing that, and then I found my way to Simpson College, which I grew up on the south side of Des Moines. So Simpson is like 15 miles from where I lived, and very easy to go to, and so that's kind of where I went.
And so was Simpson what turned you mostly into a classical player?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So I knew that going to college I was going to have to major or my main instrument was going to have to be classical guitar. I'd have to learn how to do classical guitar. So I went about doing that, but I still had in my mind, I still had the idea that I wanted to do rock guitar. Like I'll do classical, but I'll still be a rock guitarist. So I did that, and then I went to Nashville for my master's degree. I attended Belmont University, and same idea. Maybe the main reason I went to Nashville was that it's a major music center. So I still thought, okay, I'll get my master's degree in classical guitar, but I'll still play rock music. And really, within a year of being down there, I think probably a large part due to my teacher at the time is like, no, I loved classical music up to that point, but I think my love became like, no, this is all I want to do. I don't want to do the rock stuff. Also, being in Nashville, there's so many musicians that their hope is just to get a record deal or just get a gig, and guitarists are a dime a dozen there. Unfortunately, there's great players, but there's just so many that you couldn't really. It's hard to get in. So it's like, I don't really want to be working in a restaurant, bussing tables and doing guitar on the side. So like classical is more the route I wanted to go and into teaching. So.
Excellent. Well, I always thought classical guitar was sort of unique amongst guitar players. I think the only other there's two other forms that I would compare it to, and that's chord melody jazz and Travis picking. Yeah. Which all three of those styles contain the sort of chord melody aspect where you're playing the melody, the chords, and the bass all at once. Yeah. And classical is very exacting.
Yes.
And it is. It's a trip to try and take music that other people have written and make it sound like it's your own, like you're playing this as though it occurred to you directly. Yeah. And so the mastery of it for me was always trying to get the techniques down and trying to get the notes down, but then to play them to a point where you're no longer thinking about the notes and you're just worrying about what each note sounds like instead of, am I playing the right note, are my fingers in the right place?
Sure.
And that's something that I think all musicians strive for in all styles, but in classical it's a lot more intense because it's just you.
That's right.
There is no safety net. If you miss, everybody knows.
That's right, yeah.
So, speaking of it's just you, this is your first solo gig in a while, but you also have a duet, a duo that you play with, and the Kennedy Reynolds duo. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so myself and Dave Reynolds, Dave Reynolds is the treasurer of the Guitar Society, and both he and I live in Norwalk, and so really through our connection with the Guitar Society, we just started playing duets together, and it's like, hey, you just live down the street, you want to come over sometime and do some duets, and this was back I think in like 2012, something like that we started getting together, and we played a lot of events mainly for the Guitar Society, and then Oh, I think over the years we've done a few things for other organizations or just people that hire us for things, and we kind of over the last maybe 2 or 3 years kind of maybe made our duo a little more formal, if that makes sense. So we have a Facebook page, which I think
Facebook official.
Yeah, I think it's facebook.com/KRDuo. I think that's what it is. But Kennedy Reynolds Guitar Duo, you can look that up. And so yeah, it's kind of in and out in terms of when we do things like. The last year, I've been more in guitar quartet mode because we've had a lot of gigs for that, and so Dave and I'm sure we'll probably get together at some point over the next few months. We've got one more concert coming up for the guitar quartet, and then I imagine over the summer we'll probably get together and do some things. So,
well, and tell me about the Iowa Guitar Quartet too.
Yeah, so the Iowa Guitar Quartet. This also kind of grew out of the Guitar Society in 2016. Again, this is when we kind of started the idea of having some local artist concerts and trying to get people aware of events. Because we'll have, like, for instance, in March we have a guitarist coming named Andrea Gonzalez Caballero, who's phenomenal guitarist and world renowned. And we've had guitarists of that caliber before, and then like 20 people show up.
Right.
It's like, well, and we'll tell all of our students, like, no, you got to come see this person. And then the response we always get is like, well, are you playing for this? like, no, it's this person, this really great guitarist, And I think there was probably a little bit of miscommunication of like, my explaining this concert. I'm in the role of the promoter as opposed to me being a musician playing in this concert, and I think some people maybe get a little confused by that. But sure. So what we decided is like, well, if they want to come see us play, maybe we should just do a concert and have the money go to the Guitar Society. So that's what the quartet we formed in 2016 to do that, and then we've played probably 4 or 5 different concerts for the Guitar Society. But then we're our own entity, and so of course we play other events as well. And this whole last year, or 2023, probably was our busiest year. I think maybe we had like 6 or 7 concerts. It's not a lot over the course of a whole year, but probably the busiest we've been at least, and sure. It's been a good year. And then we do have one actually event coming up for that as well. It's May 12th. It's Mother's Day. We are playing with the Des Moines Community Orchestra at Drake University. I believe at Cheslow Auditorium. We're going to be playing the Concierto Andaluz by Joaquin Rodrigo. Oh, wow. And so that's a concerto that he wrote for guitar quartet. So we're playing that with an orchestra, and I would say that's probably one of the most challenging pieces we've ever had to do together. And so for me too, it's kind of hard because I have this concert coming up next month, and so I've got to like put the quartet stuff kind of on hold while I focus on this, and then I'll pick that back up probably literally the day after.
Well, and so who else is in the quartet? I know it's you and Dave Krabs, who was
David Krabs,
who was my teacher at
That's
SWIC.
Right. Yep, David Krabs. He teaches at Drake University and has a studio up in Ankeny Guitar Studio, and so he's in the group. Dave Reynolds, my guitar duo partner, is also in the quartet, and then a good friend of mine, Thomas Finn, is in the quartet as well.
Excellent. Yep. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Now I know you have an album out.
Yes.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah, wow.
This isn't new, but
I'm due for a new one.
Since we're here. Is there any anticipation of possibly a Kennedy Reynolds album or even an Iowa Guitar Quartet album?
Yes, I've been kind of pushing for that for a while, and that's maybe the challenge with playing with others is like trying to get everybody coordinated to want to do that, but also just to find the time to do it. So in theory, yes, there's plans for that, but nothing solid right now. There's just YouTube videos, really. So
excellent. Yeah. Well, if you do happen to get something like that going, you guys should come back and
for
definitely
sure.
Let us know.
Yeah.
We are going to have to stop this. My producer's letting me know it's time. But
right.
Would you stick around and play a few songs?
Absolutely.
Play a few pieces for us?
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe show us off a few techniques here in a bit?
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephen Kennedy, everybody. are back, and it's time for us to check into the Tone Zone. And today, we don't have an amp or any electric guitars. And the reason for that is that when you're playing classical guitar, as we alluded to in the interview and as you saw in the piece just now, a lot of the tone production, in fact, all of the tone production, comes just from the fingers and the guitar itself. And I am relatively well versed in a lot of the classical guitar techniques, but when you've got an expert handy, you might as well have him show you a few things. Sure. So I was wondering if you could take us through a few techniques. I wanted to start with just plucking the string normally. There's at least two techniques you can use. There's rest stroke and free stroke.
That's right, yeah.
Can you walk us through the difference?
Yeah, so free stroke, I would say, is what most guitarists think of when they simply do fingerstyle guitar. And what that is this, if, I don't know if you can zoom in on this or not, but basically where we pluck the string, and then the finger just cuts through and pulls in more or less into the palm. That's kind of the direction that it goes. And we use that probably 70 to 80% of the time in pieces of music. The opposite of that, or the other type of stroke we have, is called rest stroke, or apoyando in Spanish. And that's where the finger, rather than plucking up and into the palm, we pluck through and then we follow through into the adjacent string. And so that has an effect of really pronouncing the note a little bit more. That's really useful for maybe if we have a scale run or a kind of a melodic passage that we want to bring out, or we just really want notes to kind of sound out a little bit more.
And you can hear the difference in the clarity of that tone too. Yep. Okay, we're going to run through these as quickly as we can. Can you tell me the difference between dolce and ponticello?
Yeah, so dolce, kind of, I believe it means sweet. I should know this, but it's kind of a sweet.
In Spanish.
And so we tend to think of dolce being that we place our hand a little closer to the neck of the guitar, so kind of a really dark tone. Electric guitarist, if you think about putting your neck pickup on, that's kind of a tone that we would associate that with. And then ponticello would be if we get closer to the bridge, more of a nasally kind of metallic sort of sound. And then this is all kind of compared to maybe what we might consider a normal tone, which would be, depends on the guitar and the player, of course, but somewhere maybe just behind the sound hole or getting into the sound hole. So there's normal, dolce, and then more of a ponticello. And within that, there's a lot of different varieties in terms of how we angle our finger and have the nail touch the string. But those are a general idea of how that works.
That's awesome. What about pizzicato? What's that mean?
Yeah, so pizzicato, this again, electric guitarists, this would just be palm muting, more or less. And so that's where we take our right hand and then we're going to bring it. Well, one thing I should point out, so with classical guitar technique, our hand never touches the bridge. We're usually up, and there's a bit of an arch to our hand. Whereas, I guess as a teacher, I'll say if you're using a pick correctly with single notes, your hand would be here, and then you'll be plucking, but you're resting your hand on the bridge. And so, anyway, with pizzicato, we bring the hand back to the bridge with classical guitar, and then we use our thumb and have that kind of muted sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, so this one I've always found fascinating, the classical tremolo technique.
Okay, yeah.
I've spent years trying to get this down myself. I would demonstrate it, but again, since you're here.
Yeah. Now, I will say, just a heads up, I don't have any current tremolo pieces in my repertoire, so I am a little rusty with it, but usually it's pretty good. So a general thing that I like to do is I'll do like an open A string with an A on the second fret. Very slow. It's just where thumb plays the bass note, and then with our fingers, I'll just explain quickly the finger system. So
the Pima system.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the ring finger is A for annular, M is medio, and then I is indice. And so we go P A M I. And you want to go as quickly and as evenly as possible.
And so it's actually a 16th note rhythm that you're playing. A 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and with the thumb on the downbeat, and then the E and Z each finger.
That's right, yep. And one thing I'll say from a practicing standpoint, a good thing to do is actually just to mute your string, and then when you do that, you can hear the percussive quality better, and you have a better sense of, okay, am I in time or not? Sometimes if you have the actual pitches going, our ears can be kind of deadened to whether or not we're actually in rhythm.
My teacher had me play it using the chords to the song "Dust in the Wind."
Okay.
With the tremolo on the B string. Like that.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
never quite got it down.
Sure, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a tricky technique.
Yeah, yeah.
One more thing I want to go over.
Yeah.
If you're doing a single note line, like we hear it all the time in like flamenco, but a lot of times you see it in classical, where you have to run and sort of, it's not a tremolo technique, but you're picking either alternating I and M, your index and middle fingers, or alternating P and I. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, if you have any
it depends
specific
on the
techniques
situation. I'm trying to think if I can think of a passage in a piece that I do something like that with. It really depends, but my default, if I'm just kind of picturing just a generic scale, and I'm probably going to use index middle. Gosh, let's see, I'll just do a simple scale. So I'm just doing index middle there, and I did rest stroke. There's times certainly where maybe free stroke, I like the sound of the free stroke better, but yeah, probably index middle unless there's something very particular about that passage that I would do something different.
That was one I worked on a long time. The song Capriccio Arabe is the one that came to mind.
Yeah.
There's that big chromatic run.
Yes. Yep, and that's what I would probably do there, yeah.
Yeah, for me it's free stroke, because again, I don't practice this anymore. But anyway, those are the ones that I had in mind. Thank you so much for showing those off. The classical guitar technique is just so mind-boggling to me. There's so much to think about all at once. So thank you for demonstrating that for us. Well, that's it for the guitar department. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank my guest, Stephen Kennedy. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me.
How can they, you have a lot going on, how can they follow any or all of what you're putting out there right now?
Yeah, so probably the best place is my personal website, so StephenKennedyGuitar.com. You can find all any dates that I have going on there, any info about me if you want to contact me for any gigs or if you want to do lessons with me. Also there you can find my social media, my YouTube. Also, that's probably maybe the most important thing to go check out. If you just search Stephen Kennedy Guitar on YouTube, you'll find me. And then IowaGuitarQuartet.com. You can find our information there. And then finally, HeartOfIowaGuitar.com for any events we have there, including my concert on February 17th.
So be sure to check out all of those websites and follow Stephen everywhere he goes. I also want to thank our producer Jackson Miller, our cameraman Matthew, and be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Guitar Department and on Instagram at @guitar_department. And would you play us out with one more piece
absolutely.
before you go?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.